This podcast is part of the Frederick Podcast Network. Learn more at listenfrederick.com.
That's number one. You kind of reset me.
Painful, tender to the touch. May also
Same shoulder length, and the other.
Well, hello, welcome back to another episode of the Real Health Podcast with Brandy and Amir. I am Dr. Amir Rashidian, a chiropractor. Brandy Rashidian is my other half, business partner, life partner, and comedian extraordinaire.
I don't even have any jokes planned for today. You're setting me up for failure, sir.
She's the vocalist in the family as well. So
He's just saying I'm the loudest.
okay, that's true.
I am pretty loud.
Yeah, that's why your microphone is like 9 feet away, and my microphone has to be right next to my.
What? I just pulled it closer. Sean, did I do the wrong thing? He always tells me. He said closer.
Sean has other issues with your microphone.
Fine.
But the Real Health Podcast is brought to you by the Frederick Podcast Network, and it can be found on listenfrederick.com along with YouTube and Spotify and all the other platforms. And hopefully you'll listen to us, watch us, share, subscribe, all that stuff.
Yep.
We appreciate that very much.
It helps with the algorithm.
Well, yeah. Is that a friend of yours, Al Go Rythm?
Mm-hmm.
Is
Yep.
it short for Albert Go Rythm?
We're working on his
Is
rhythm.
Go the middle name? Al Go.
That's what all my favorite podcasters say. They say, I'm not implying that I'm your favorite podcaster either, but if so, thank you.
You're my favorite podcaster.
Oh, you're one of my favorite podcasters too.
Thanks.
Sorry, you're not the only favorite though. And they all say, please like and subscribe and share this because it helps with the algorithm. So I thought I would throw that in there.
So
I don't know
speaking
if
of
it's true.
podcasters, I'm gonna move
Get me
us
off
along.
my- thank
Yeah,
you.
I'm gonna move us along because my favorite podcaster is Patrick Bet-David. And,
True.
I was actually gonna wear valuetainment gear today, but I was gonna go to the bank. I thought I should wear a shirt, but
Well, you definitely have to wear a shirt to get into the bank. It's no shirt, no shoes, no
well,
service.
I meant the button-up shirt, not
Oh,
because
okay.
that's a long sleeve T-shirt. Now, I
But it's
love
nice.
I love their merch. It's great. I have a couple of long sleeve T-shirts that say Valuetainment. I like their logo.
Yep.
The T-shirts fit so well. Actually, other people like patients' wives, when they see me in that shirt, they're like, "Where'd you get that shirt? I want to get it for my husband." So, anyways, I'm not advertising for them. They don't know me. They don't know anything
They
about
don't
me.
need the
and
advertisement either. They're big.
They don't need it. Yeah, they have millions. They sold, I think, 250,000 shirts last year, and that was their first year having merch. So, anyways, coming back to this, so that's my favorite podcaster, and Patrick Bet-David had Gary Brecka on the show last week, and it's a 2-hour podcast, and I highly recommend everybody watch and
Do you
listen.
want to tell them who Gary Brecka is? Because
Yeah, Gary Brecka is some people call him a biohacker, but he's just a genius at human genetics and physiology and health.
yeah, I
Health
think
and
didn't he
wellness.
used to be an actuary?
Yeah, he worked for a life insurance actuary firm, which is basically what they do is if someone wants to sell their policy before they're dead, these firms will give you money and they'll buy your policy. And then when you die, they get the death benefit. And then from the moment you sell your policy to them, they pay your premium for you until the day you pass. And it's a big business.
It is.
And so he was able to predict within weeks a person's death. So he would basically look at someone's medical records and say they have 10.4 years of life left.
Yeah.
And he was always right.
Here's what I would say. After listening to him, and I've been listening to several of his podcasts and reading some of his stuff. He's really, really, really smart. If you want to know how to either prolong your life or not shorten your life, start researching him. I mean, what he describes is how they determine how long somebody is going to live or how long they will not live. Fascinating. But one of the biggest predictors for them was how many pharmaceuticals somebody was on.
Yep.
And that cascade, man, he's like, that was super easy then to be able to predict,
Right.
fascinating. So listen to it and then take that information and utilize it, because
Right.
we're going to talk about one particular thing that he talked about.
Yeah, so it's pretty neat because he talks about hydrogenated water and hydrogen tabs, and this is something Brandy and I used to take
I know.
regularly.
And then we
used-
stopped.
We used to get it from Mercola.com back in the day,
Yeah.
and I loved it because every time I drank the water, I had all this energy all day. I wouldn't crave anything,
Coffee.
energy-wise,
Yeah.
caffeine or any of that stuff. I like coffee, but sometimes I drink it because I want the extra energy and the boost in
I just
caffeine.
like the flavor.
Yeah, yeah. Well, definitely that's the main reason I drink it, is because I like the taste. But the hydrogen water gives you. It seems like it gives you energy. I mean,
Yeah,
it feels
but
like it gives you energy.
not only that, it's
We're
amazing.
we're gonna get into it.
Yeah.
But so when you watch that podcast, and I think we'll probably pull other things from that to talk about, because
It was loaded
He
with
mentioned a
fantastic
lot
stuff.
of great things on how to make sure you're just enjoying life better by being healthier. So if you want to search for it, you can search PBD podcast with Gary Brecka, Brecka.
CKA.
Anyways, we don't get anything from that. We're just fans. We're both fans of Patrick Bet-David and
Gary.
and now Gary as well. I've heard other interviews of Gary. He's a good guy. He's seems to be really smart. He gets a lot of slack. Anybody who goes against the grain is going to have negative publicity. In fact, you know what? I don't listen to people who don't have negative publicity. I want them to have positive and negative publicity.
Yeah.
So
They should be a little polarizing for it to be a good message.
exactly.
So.
Exactly. So, so talking about hydrogen tabs, what did you find out? Because, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I don't think that most of us know that majority of the water we drink is actually inflammatory. So while it can be inflammatory. A lot of it, well, if you're drinking tap water, it's inflammatory. Like all the stuff that's in it, it's pretty disgusting, right? I mean, if we're talking about just regular municipal tap water, it's probably not the best stuff. And then you look at other water, like bottled water, we're dealing with things like microplastics. We don't really know if it's true. A lot of it is just tap water. So just do your due diligence in the waters that you're.
They found lead and mercury in pipes.
Yeah, it's just, it can be bad. But what's cool about this is we can take any water, whether it be tap water, whether it be, water from your well or water from a water bottle, which I usually don't recommend at all. But, and you can actually drop these hydrogen tablets in it and it becomes really good, healthy water that is going to help reduce inflammation in your body. So here's some of the potential health benefits from hydrogen water. Powerful antioxidant effects. Molecular hydrogen can help neutralize harmful free radicals, which may reduce oxidative stress and slow down aging and cell damage. One thing that Brecka said is that they found in their research that it actually lengthens telomeres. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? I don't know if everybody will know what telomeres are.
Telomeres is what they used to call junk DNA. So basically, I said this is useful DNA because DNA chains are very long. They say you have enough DNA in your body to go to the moon and back 5 times or something crazy like that, or wrap around the Earth multiple times. But so they used to think the ends of DNA are junk, but they noticed that they shrink as we age and they get smaller and smaller, and then that's one of the predictors of lifespan. But there's a lot more to it. But so telomeres keep you healthy. And that's the ends of your DNA, and this hydrogen water seems to increase that. Also, just the concept of antioxidant. Everything in life in the world oxidizes your body. When you get tired, you're more oxidated.
Yeah. So an example of that is like when you cut an apple open and you leave it out in the air, it turns brown, and that's called oxidation.
Same with something metal will rust.
Right.
So that's oxidation, but it's exactly the same in the human body, and so the body needs to have certain things reduced. Like for example, your red blood cells, when they're in oxidated state, they're more fragile. They burst, they lyse faster.
Yeah.
If they're reduced, they last longer. And glutathione is one of the strongest antioxidants in red blood cells. So.
And does hydrogen, is this one of the things, I can't remember, we talked about so many that help to the red blood cells to separate and not be clumped together?
I think many things do that.
Okay.
Yeah, many things like having a less acidic blood profile can do that as well.
Yeah, I feel like don't listen when you guys listen to the podcast that we're referring to, and we're going to go back through and talk more about some of that. But I believe he actually mentioned that they did a pinprick on a finger, and they took a sample pre hydrogen water and then post hydrogen water, and it like the blood cells, and they just looked at it under a microscope right then in real time.
Yeah.
And he said, the first one, they were clumped together and they, misshapen and whatnot. And after the hydrogen water, they were all separated out and just beautiful. So that's pretty cool.
That is very cool.
So some of the others, it mentions anti-inflammatory processes. Some studies suggest that hydrogen water may help reduce inflammation, which could be beneficial to joint health, recovery, and chronic conditions like arthritis. Guys, this is an inexpensive, easy thing you can get. You can order these online. And I mean, a lot of times you have to have a lead up in seeing some of those longer or some of those benefits to some of the chronic issues that you might have, but stay with it. He's saying like within 6 months, people are seeing really fantastic changes in their health and the levels of inflammation in their body.
Yeah, he said a lot of things in that podcast. When you combine this with vitamin D, high dose of vitamin D increases health and reduces autoimmune symptoms and so on. And then the next one is athletic performance and recovery, and I've experienced that a lot. It says it reduces muscle fatigue and soreness, and it lowers lactic acid buildup. I think what it does is it neutralizes the lactic acid,
which is what makes you sore, right? When you work out. So when you go and lift really
one
heavy.
of the things that make you sore is lactic acid buildup. Obviously, there's other factors, muscle fiber damage and so on, but I used to, back in the day, a few years ago when we used to do these hydrogen tablets, I always remembered I could run further on the treadmill if I went to the gym in the morning, and I had more energy throughout the day. And then recently, so we just started this week. We've taken them for a few days Sunday. Now. I only do one in the morning, one at noontime. You've been doing 3 in a day.
Well, I've been playing with it a little bit because I have higher levels of inflammation with some my autoimmune stuff that we're trying to reverse.
Well, what was interesting was I did a legs workout yesterday, and so I do 2 exercises to pre-fatigue my leg muscles before I do squats. And then when I do squats, it's 4 sets of 8 where you increase the weight. Then the 5th set, you increase it all the way up so you can't do more than 8 reps, and then you do a double drop. So you lower the weights, you do 8, you lower the weights, you do 15, lower the weights, you do 20.
Right.
And 20 reps of squats after having done 15, and then 8 reps at the heaviest. It's pretty exhausting.
Right.
I used to gas out, and the last couple reps, I would have to do what's called a rest pause, where I would pause for 5 to 10 seconds and then do another rep, pause for a couple seconds, do another. I didn't have to pause.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I was able to do that yesterday.
I think we should ask some of our favorite trainers, like Blake, to test this with some of his other clients. You know what I mean? Because he's like working them out.
Right.
Yeah, I have a couple people in mind. Can I say their names?
Yeah.
John and Brooke. I'm going to put you on this so that you guys can like really look and see what the differences are in strength and performance and things like that.
Yeah, especially because I'm in a cutting phase, which means I'm on low carb diet.
Right.
I'm working on reducing body fat. And the other day, Blake said, I think what's left is just skin, because I think all your body fat's gone. But we're gonna try to get rid of some of the skin too. But
I don't know how to do that.
Eat less, work out more.
Lots of exfoliation.
I don't know. We're not using scissors, that's for sure. So anyways,
speaking of, another benefit to hydrogen water is improved metabolism as well. So boosting the mitochondrial function, better energy production overall, which I think is really cool. Here's another thing I thought was fascinating. Potential for brain health.
Oh yeah, this is huge.
I thought this was awesome because it can cross the blood-brain barrier. Molecular hydrogen might help protect against neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's by reducing brain inflammation and oxidative stress. I cannot say this enough. It is so inexpensive to get these tablets and so easy to do. All you have to do is drop one into your water and drink it right away. You don't want to leave it. It's not something you drink over, 30 minutes or an hour. You want to get it in as quickly as possible because there is the hydrogen will.
The hydrogen gas will escape.
Yes.
It will come out of the water.
So
but this is huge for brain health. Now they didn't mention dementia because dementia is partly neurodegenerative, but also it's a lot more. It has to do with insulin resistance.
Right. But they do talk about it potentially reducing like Parkinson's, effects, which is so huge.
Absolutely.
So let's see. It also supports gut health. So this could help with the microbiome, potentially improving digestion and reducing symptoms of IBS. And again, this is so safe and healthy. You know what I mean? I just cannot. It seems silly for us not to do something that's so easy that positively impacts all of these things.
Yeah.
So not just potential for gut health, but also heart health. So early studies indicate hydrogen water may help lower LDL cholesterol, reduce high blood pressure, and improve overall cardiovascular
He talked
function.
about in one of the videos. He talked about opening the capillaries.
Yeah.
Yeah, capillaries are so small. Capillaries are the smallest blood vessels we have. Some of them are as thin as a hair, a strand of hair, and they're thick enough for one
Right.
red blood cell to pass through.
Right. And
And-
30% of the capillaries are for blood and 70% for water,
Yeah,
is what he said.
yeah.
That's crazy.
So oxygen saturation of the body improves when these capillaries are healthy.
Yeah.
You're getting more, and blood pressure lowers when the blood vessels dilate.
We got to get our favorite cows on this.
You have a favorite cow?
I do have a few favorite cows,
Okay.
but I like all the flying cows.
I
But I
like
do
them all.
have a few favorites.
Oh yeah.
They know who they are. Okay. So, how do you get hydrogen water? Besides hydrogen tablets, there are some hydrogen machines and pre-bottled hydrogen water. I would say some of the hydrogen water machines, or they have like water bottles that do that too. They can be expensive. And from what I understand, the longer term, like they wear out and stop producing the right amount of hydrogen. So the tablets seem to be the easiest when it comes to just ease of administration, being able to take it and use it whenever. And they're not too expensive considering the health benefits that you get from it.
There's, what did he say? 1,335 research articles on hydrogen in the body.
Yeah.
And not every one of them is about the hydrogen tabs and drinking the water, but many of them are.
Yeah.
So this isn't something that hasn't been proven
Right.
scientifically. These are journals, published articles all about the benefits of this, and that's where this information comes from.
Yeah.
So don't take it lightly. I would think it's one of the most impactful things we do in our health. Besides, obviously, like making sure you're sleeping, because you can take this, and if you don't sleep right or you don't eat
Correct.
right, you don't exercise, obviously your health is going to suffer. But if you're doing those things and you still have things like autoimmune issues, come on, try it out. There's doesn't seem to be any harm to it whatsoever.
No, which is fantastic. So here's what I would love to do. I think it'll be really cool because we regularly do our blood work. So we've had our blood work done fairly recently prior to using the
I'm
hidrogen
gonna
water.
do it again next week.
You're doing yours next week.
Yeah.
So I'm going to wait several months before I do mine. So I'm going to have a bigger like panel,
Yeah,
or a bigger time frame in which
Right.
to see change.
yeah.
So I'm probably going to wait another at least 4 or 5 months before I do my next blood work.
Okay.
So I can really see, because we can
Yeah.
even check the inflammatory markers and
Right.
see how much they've decreased. So I'm excited to see that.
100%. That's great. So let's talk about ADHD again. This was an article sent to us by, I guess, one of our, what do you call them? Followers, fans, colleagues, friend, yeah, online friend that I haven't met, but I guess he saw a segment that we talked about ADHD, and he sent this article for us to look at, and I thought it'd be good to report on it. I'm not going to read the whole thing, obviously, and I'm not going to read much of it, but I thought it was pretty interesting because there were a couple of things I didn't know.
Okay.
And this is the title of the article this is from the Public Library of Medicine. It's a peer-reviewed weekly medical journal. So peer-reviewed means it has tremendous credibility.
Yes.
Because that means if a group of PhDs write it, then a separate group of PhDs review it to make sure it's accurate and correct. So there's definite weight to this article. So, and it says the ADHD epidemic, how profit, not science, drives the surge in diagnosis.
Which is one of our big issues with modern medicine,
yeah.
right?
A federal investigation has launched into the mass labeling and drugging of America's children, especially for ADHD. I love this.
That's awesome.
This is the stuff. But you know what? How many of you have heard of this? Nobody. I guarantee you this doesn't become public. They hide this. They bury it. They don't want this stuff heard.
Yeah.
It says with mounting evidence increases in children being labeled with ADHD without any scientific test to substantiate the diagnosis, a federal investigation needs to look to profit-driven motives. A study in Public Library of Medicine found that 57% of DSM-4 and 69% of DSM-5 task force members, you want to know what DSM is? It is the Diagnostics and Statistics Manual. That's what DSM stands for. It's the Bible for psychological diagnoses. Just like there is this thing called the PDR, Physician's Desk Reference, has a listing of every drug ever created known to mankind. The DSM-4 was the predecessor for the DSM-5. DSM-4, so they create a task force, and these guys go through and they say, oh, we should call this diagnosis, and this is this, and this is that. So they actually, like, I remember in DSM-4, they had a health nut diagnosis. So it was a diagnosis for people who eat very healthy all the time.
And they called them a health nut.
They called them a health nut, and it became an official psychological diagnosis in the DSM-4.
Well, several years ago, there was one about Facebook. Facebook depression became, an actual diagnosis.
This panel says if someone has these symptoms and they behave this way and these are their markers, this is their diagnosis. So that book, it's a big book. It has everything.
I don't know about you, but I would be pretty ticked if I got a mental diagnosis of health nut because I chose to try to stay away from medications, to try to eat healthy, exercise. Like, why would you label somebody that?
Well, they said there's negative behaviors involved or whatever. But anyways, so it's saying this. It says so that this task force then gets back together, and the new task force created the DSM-5, and every few years there's another DSM that comes out. So here's what they say: 69% of the DSM-5 task force members had financial ties to pharmaceutical companies, fueling a dramatic rise in ADHD diagnoses over the past 2 decades.
That makes me angry.
They literally profit by labeling as ADHD.
And you all wonder why we don't trust you. Come on.
58,091 children aged 5 or younger were prescribed ADHD drugs in 2020. This is 5 years ago. I know that number's up. Yet the Food and Drug Administration has not approved their use in this age group.
But let's just keep doing it.
They're not looking at it either. That's the problem.
Correct.
Isn't it their job, the Food and Drug Administration, to protect from this crap?
But they're not. They're protecting the of the people diagnosing.
So they look the other way. ADHD stimulating drugs are classified as Schedule 2. Do you know what Schedule 2 is?
What?
Schedule 2 is morphine, oxycodone, and fentanyl. Those are Schedule 2. So these are drugs that the FDA, the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, categorized as Schedule 2, which is which is in the same class or category as morphine, oxycodone, and fentanyl.
Right. And it's because they're scheduled like that, or they're notated like that because there's a high risk of addiction.
Correct. So they're linked to addiction, growth suppression.
That's what we want to give to kids under 5.
Psychotic symptoms, health complications, and get this one, sudden death among children.
If that doesn't give you pause, the fact that number one, they're prescribing on kids under 5 that hasn't even been tested on them, nuts.
It says, despite decades of promotion, there is still no biological test, neurological marker, or conclusive proof that ADHD is a distinct medical disorder. Profit drives its diagnosis, with ADHD drug sales projected to rise from $19.5 billion in 2020 to $34.8 billion by 2027.
Well, that 69% who are have those financial ties are really slated to do well.
Yeah. There you go. And I think there was one other thing.
I think that alone should just be a trigger for parents to pause.
Yeah.
Before you go and label and start giving your kids these medications. There are, if we're dealing with a hyperactivity issue, or first of all, they're kids. They're supposed to be active. Right?
5 years and younger. I mean, 58,000 of them are 5 and younger.
Right. And those 5-year-olds, a lot of them are in a classroom, right? They're in kindergarten, expected to sit majority of the day.
Right.
And most of our schools have pulled out PE. They've pulled out, you know what I mean? So we have these kids who are built to be active. They're supposed to be playing and moving, and we want them to sit still all day.
Yeah. It says, as a federal investigation unfolds, there's hope that the widespread labeling of children as mentally disordered and prescribing psychotropic drugs will be recognized as a profit-driven practice, harming children's health and future. There you have it. So then there's this one. This was Washington Post. This is funny. This is just fun. This is terrible because people read this and they believe it.
Yeah, I know.
It says healthy drinks are as important as healthy foods for kids, panel says. Okay. So
that in and of itself is true.
I don't disagree with that part. Healthy drinks are as important as healthy foods. Makes sense because a lot of kids get a lot of sugar through drinks.
Correct.
And then parents are like, oh, we make sure they don't eat sugar. I'm like, but they're drinking the sugar and that's okay. Just not eat the sugar. So anyways, children and teens should drink water. That part I like.
We agree.
Plain, and then it says plain pasteurized cow's milk, maybe, and limited amounts of 100% fruit and vegetable juices, according to healthy beverage guidelines recently released by an expert panel.
Well, first of all, those fruit juices are not real fruit juices. We all know that because the average person is not going to the health food store and getting freshly squeezed juice.
Right.
Most people don't do that.
Right.
By the way, there are grocery stores here that do that. They have it. Much healthier.
Yep.
If you can do it fresh squeezed. However, most of them are getting it, whatever it's called, juice in a plastic jar, which is really just water and food coloring and high fructose corn syrup and flavoring of that juice or of that fruit.
Who was the expert that we listened to who said anytime you see the words natural flavors, don't ingest it? Because natural.
Is that Dr. Barbara?
No,
somebody else.
It was a gentleman. I'll find out later. But actually, he was on the PBD podcast as well prior to Gary Brecka.
Oh, interesting.
And he made some amazing recommendations as well. So that's another one we should dive into. But he said natural flavors means there's chemicals in there. Yeah. But the FDA just requires them to write the words natural flavors.
Right, because we talked about this on a prior podcast. There's actually, the FDA has their own definition of natural, and they have a whole laundry list of chemicals that they label as
Right.
natural because they've had the opportunity to create their own definition, so they can put whatever they want under that umbrella. So do not be fooled.
Yeah, but definition natural means taste. I mean, flavor means taste.
Right.
So they're basically saying this chemical tastes natural.
Right.
It's a natural flavor.
Right.
Otherwise, they would say raspberry powder, which is what they use in those hydrant tabs, I think.
Oh yeah, we have raspberry ones that are coming.
Yeah, I don't care about flavors. Anyways, it says in a consensus statement, the panel recommended limiting plant-based milk alternatives.
I agree with that.
Flavored milk, obviously, caffeine in beverages sweetened with both sugar and non-sugar
Well, why
sweeteners.
are kids having a lot of caffeine anyway?
But,
They don't need it.
So that part's good. I like that. Now, who's the panel? Because I'm like, well, okay, there's this panel. I want to know who they are. It says it included experts from Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, the American Academy of Pediatric Dentistry, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and the American Heart Association. Anyways, it was over a 5-month period. The panel members reviewed extensive scientific literature and drafted the recommendations which apply to youth ages 5 to 18. So we needed to have people in a room for 5 months so they could come out and say these sugary drinks are bad. The weird milks that are out on the shelves, flavored milks and all that, they're bad. Caffeine is bad for kids.
I wonder how much they paid these
They
people.
should
I
drink
would've done it for
water.
free.
Oh, I bet they got paid.
I would have told you that.
So this next sentence, oh my goodness, next 2 sentences. So they said water should be the primary beverage for meeting hydration needs. Fine.
True.
But then they say tap water is preferred, the panel writes, noting that it is usually readily available, convenient, affordable, and environmentally friendly. In many places, it is also fluoridated. Bottled water should be consumed only where tap water is unsafe, they write.
I would like them to expand on why. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
So they don't care that tap water tends to have,
Fluoride.
mercury and lead in it, plus all the other heavy metals. They don't seem to mind that. I mean, drinking tap water is environmentally friendly. Is that what they're saying?
I don't even know why
is-
that would even be in there.
As opposed to what I think they're talking about the bottles that the bottled water is
Probably.
in. The bottles are not good for the environment. I'm like, well, filter your water.
Right. That's better. I mean,
Don't
we use a
drink the
Berkey.
microplastics anyways.
Right.
Filter it. Anyways, they don't talk about
But
that.
maybe
then-
the authors stand to gain something. They might be in the water industry.
They're in the fluoride business. Yeah, so fluoridated. And you go, okay, what's wrong with fluorine in water? We talked about this in another podcast. But just briefly, fluoride in water can actually cause dental fluorosis, which is where the kids get these white marks and bumps on their teeth. It can cause skeletal fluorosis, which causes joint pain, stiffness, and change in bone structure. And then there's thyroid effects. Some research suggests that excess fluoride may interfere with thyroid function, particularly in individuals with iodine deficiency. Suppressed thyroid activity can contribute to fatigue, weight gain, and depression. It can also cause neurodevelopmental risks. And so basically, your thyroid gland and your brain are going to get affected. A few studies have raised concerns about fluoride exposure in pregnancy and or possible associations with reduced IQ or cognitive development in children. These studies are still debated, and more research is needed for clear conclusions. They accumulate in the body. So unlike some minerals, fluoride accumulates in bones and teeth over time. People with impaired kidney function may have a harder time excreting excess fluoride, potentially leading to complications. It can affect your kidneys. Concerns about overexposure from multiple sources. There's cumulative exposure. I'm not going to get too far into this, and so on. So
It's so funny because when it was fairly recent. There was a news report. It wasn't in Maryland. It was another state that a tanker truck full of fluoride wrecked, and they had to bring in like the hazmat team.
Oh yeah.
It was eating through the cement. Eating through the cement. I don't know about you guys, but when there's a chemical that they put in our drinking water, or they want me to do at dental at certain healthcare visits, and then there's a tanker of it and it's eating through cement, it gives me pause.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder
So
why they want me
do
to
your
have
own
that.
research, because we're not allowed to tell you not to, drink fluoridated water, or don't put fluoride in your toothpaste or any of that stuff.
You should research it.
Holistic dentists typically say fluoride is not good for teeth, but in some cases it does prevent decay, I guess, but it causes all kinds of other issues.
You gotta pick your poison.
And then they talk about pasteurized milk, which they say provides essential nutrients, the panel writes, with fat-free or low-fat options, the gold standard. Come on. That's ridiculous.
That is not the
you
gold standard.
Pull out
people.
the fat from milk. You don't have milk anymore. That's not milk.
Right. No, you have junk.
And then they fortify it with vitamin D. Milk doesn't have vitamin D in it. They have to fortify it.
Right.
And if there's no fat in there, then the vitamin D cannot dissolve in that
Correct.
water.
You have to have a fat in order for vitamin D to process in the body.
So anyway, and anyway, do your own research again on this as far as what happens when you pasteurize milk. I know unpasteurized milk is illegal in the state of Maryland. It's not a misdemeanor, it's a felony. Mm-hmm. So you can go to prison for carrying, distributing, drinking pasteurized milk, unpasteurized milk. But if you have a cow and I don't know. Anyways,
just do your research. And yes, water is best, but clean water is ideal. And then think about too, hydrogen, adding that in. I mean, how nice that we had those two to go together. Exactly. I had Naveed drink it the other night.
And I have a personal experience with because they call them plant-based milk alternatives.
Oh.
Like you have soy milk,
rapeseed oil in it a lot
soy
of times.
milk, oat milk, whatever else milk there is. Listen, if it looks like milk and it's like slippery and thick like milk, then they added stuff to do it, because soy milk and oat milk are going to be watery, very watery, and they're not going to be white. They have a different color to it. So they bleach this stuff and they make it look like milk, and they make it taste like milk, and they sweeten it too. And the sweetener depends on what it is. If it's sugar, cane sugar is not as bad, but they usually put sweeteners in there, which is toxic and neurotoxic.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, so I switched from milk. I was putting my protein shake in milk, and pasteurized milk, and I was getting more acne. So I switched to oat milk thinking that was going to help. And the acne got even worse. And I looked at the ingredients, and one of the ingredients was rapeseed, R-A-P-E, rapeseed oil. And rapeseed oil has no benefit to it except that it makes the milk thicker and more slippery, so it looks more like milk. So anyways, I put my protein in water now, and I'm perfectly happy, and I don't miss it one bit.
Yeah.
And I don't miss the acne either.
Yeah, it's a little sad. It's a little sad that, number one, we have to have this conversation, that we have so many options that
it's
are
sad that
marketed
we
to
spend the
kids.
money to get a panel together for 5 months to tell our kids to drink water. Really? You hear the story about Gandhi? Apparently, there's a story about a woman who stood in line to talk to Gandhi. She stood in line for like 4 hours because, I guess Gandhi was pretty popular. I don't even know if this is a true story. So finally they get to the front of the line, and Gandhi says, "How can I help you?" And she goes, "Tell my son to stop eating sugar." So Gandhi says, "Come back in a week." So the woman goes home with her kid, comes back a week later, stands in this line 4 hours later, finally gets to the front of the line, and Gandhi says, "How can I help you?" The woman said, "Please, I asked you last week to tell my son to stop eating sugar, and you told us to come back in a week. So we're back." And he goes, "Oh yeah, son, stop eating sugar." She goes, "Why couldn't you say that a week ago?" He said, "I had to stop eating sugar myself for a week so that I'd have the right to tell your son not to eat sugar." So we don't drink this crap, so we have a right to tell you guys not to do it.
Seriously.
One more kids article. You want to do this one?
Yeah.
Multilingual. This was also
yeah.
in Washington Post. Interesting. Nothing about this one made me angry, so that's good.
There's no table slapping on this article.
I'm like, I'm gonna get a shirt. Angry chiropractor. Everything's making me angry.
Don't claim that.
You know what's funny is on the PBD podcast. I told you I watch every podcast they do or listen to it at least. One of the guys, Vinny Oshana, his title is Angry Patriot, and he has a T-shirt, and that's a merch on Valuetainment now.
That's funny.
Where you can get Angry Patriot. So I'm gonna get one, Angry Chiropractor. But you don't want to be adjusted by an angry chiropractor.
That's true. Hey, Sean, we should be talking about when our numbers get to a certain thing, we get our own merch. Can we talk about what that needs to be?
Yeah, Real Health.
I have some ideas.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on.
The article says multilingual children have better executive function skills, the study finds. The effect was even stronger for multilingual kids with autism spectrum disorder, according to researchers. The study published in Autism Research looked at 116 children ages 7 to 12. Mm-hmm. Of those, 53 had autism spectrum disorder and 63 did not, though 4 children were later excluded. Huh. They kicked them out.
I wonder why. I would love to know why, actually.
I want to be one of those kids that get kicked out. Get out! 21 of the children with autism spectrum disorder spoke more than one language, and 35 of the typically developing children were multilingual. Most of the multilingual children spoke English and Spanish, though some spoke Portuguese, Hebrew, French, Japanese, or Bulgarian in addition to English.
None spoke Farsi, huh?
Because I have dyslexia, I am on that spectrum. Of course, you say my behavior puts me on that spectrum also.
You have some tism.
Yeah. So okay, I'm autistic. Great. With
I didn't say you were
dyslexia.
autistic. I did not label you. I just said you have tisms.
You said I'm on the spectrum.
You said you were on the spectrum. I just agreed with you. Did you see how I just got blamed for labeling him? He labeled himself.
I don't mind. As long as I don't take that toxic crap. Hydrogen water helps with that too. It's like Windex in that movie. What was the movie?
That was My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
That's right. You put Windex on it.
That's right.
So you got ADHD, get some Windex.
For us, it's hydrogen water right now and castor oil. Those are like my 2 favorite things.
I should bring some articles on castor oil.
Man, castor oil is just a kick butt kind of thing.
Put it on the list. Researchers tested the children's executive function abilities and asked parents to fill out questionnaires assessing autism symptoms such as perspective taking, the ability to understand perspectives other than one's own, and social communication. The multilingual children all demonstrated better executive function than their counterparts who spoke just one language, regardless of whether they were on the autism spectrum. But the effect was stronger for multilingual kids with autism who had significantly higher impulse control than their single language counterparts who had autism.
It's awesome.
So teach your kids multiple languages.
And let me just say, all children have issues with impulse control.
Oh my gosh.
Like especially boys.
Shocking.
In certain age range, like they have no impulse control. So what a great idea. Parents, start teaching your kids. Give them Duolingo. Yeah. I think that's one. Or
our youngest is teaching himself German on an app.
Yeah, that's awesome because Germany is one of my laundry list.
Research also found a direct and indirect association between multilingualism and perspective taking. This could be because people who speak more than one language must assess social cues to decide which language to speak, or that their knowledge of more than one language comes with a higher ability to understand language itself.
Well, yeah.
And I can attest to that. My native language is Farsi, mm-hmm. and then I learned English when I was 11, and now I think in English. But I can switch that and start thinking in Farsi whenever I want, just because both languages are programmed in me.
It's so funny because I wouldn't even know what thinking in another language would look like or feel like.
Yeah, and literally there's things you want to say in English that you absolutely can't.
Yeah.
But in another language you can.
Right.
It just doesn't exist. And so having that ability, I think, makes you superhuman. And I think about people who speak 4 or 5. The Shah of Iran spoke 7 fluent languages.
Wow.
You should his interviews. He speaks perfect English.
Yeah, I've heard some. He was a good communicator.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Well, I don't know if we have time for any more. This is it's been a good one. We are out of time. I did want to talk about women's health and menopause and hormone therapy. That's a big topic. It's always been it's a timeless topic. So we'll put this back in the pile. We may come back around to it. And I was also going to talk about athletic performance. Our 3 kids, they consider themselves athletes. I consider them athletes too. They like basketball, but it's really interesting because some of the best athletes today in football and basketball don't have the body of an athlete.
Right. They don't have that typical cut physique you would expect to see.
So this one article, this was about Patrick Mahomes mainly, but it talked about a very famous basketball player who, before he was drafted, his vertical was 17 inches. That means he could only jump 17 inches.
Right.
Now you want an NBA basketball player to be able to jump
40.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, 40 is nice.
Yeah, but 42 would be good. 43.
Anything more than 17. And yet
he was 4.
He was drafted 2nd round.
That's amazing.
And he is a superstar in the NBA today.
What's his vertical now?
I don't know. I don't
wonder
think
if
they
it's more
tested.
than 17.
But they talked about how rotational movements and side-to-side lateral movements are way more important than vertical, bench press, and squat, which is what all the other people use to assess your ability is. And in football, they assess forward speed. But you know what? Some of the greatest running backs didn't have the speed that you would think.
Right.
I don't quote me on this, but Emmitt Smith has the 2nd highest number of touchdowns of any football player after Jerry Rice. And he wasn't the fastest. Yeah. I don't think Jerry Rice, who owns the record for most touchdowns scored ever, I don't think he was as fast as some of the other people.
Yeah.
Because they knew how to do lateral movement. Lateral movement and rotational movements supersede straight inline speed.
You know what you need in order to have really good lateral movements? You have to have a really great spine in great shape.
Oh, that's true. Nervous system. There you go. Come to the chiropractor. We'll fix you up, get you ready. All the basketball players in Frederick are attesting to that.
Yeah, for sure.
So much so that they begged us to. They said if we make the playoffs, they want us to travel with them to every playoff game, to be their chiropractor. So, all right.
Sounds good.
There you have it. Good show.
I thought it was informative.
I had fun. Let's go drink some more hydrogen water, and let kids be kids.
That's right. Send them outside. It's nice now. Let them get some good vitamin D.
It's getting very nice. This is a great week
for
weather. Take care. God bless. And we'll see you next time.
See ya.
This podcast is part of the Frederick Podcast Network. Learn more at listenfrederick.com.